Staff Sergeant Aument was born on June 16th, 1958 in Lancaster, Pennsylvania on a farm. Although his father, who served, wasn't big on him joining due to things he saw in World War II and Korea, he served his country honorably for 20 years. He said he joined because
I felt like I was missing out on something that my father and my grandfather did, and I knew my brothers didn't do it, and I felt I needed to.
his father, Charles Aument Sr., worked for Alcoa Aluminum, and his mother, Lenora Aument, worked for Woodstream Corporation. Staff Sergeant Aument has three siblings, two older brothers named Chuck and Joe, and a sister named Carol. Aument's basic training and AIT were held at Fort Dix, New Jersey in 1979. He left behind his young wife named Vicky and entered the Army/Pennsylvania Army National Guard. He joined the Army because his father and grandfather were in the Army. And when Ahmet was asked if he had any instructors he remembers, he said,
Yes, Drill Sergeant Gay and Drill Sergeant Isgado. Drill Sergeant Gay was a Caucasian drill instructor, and Isgado was a Mexican fellow, and both of them were very good. And when I placed sixth overall in the soldier stakes for the battalion, and both came to greet me at the end and said that I should change my listing from National Guard to United States Army.
Ahmet's first assignment after basic training was advanced individual training, so he could learn his job, which would be a mechanic for heavy-wheeled vehicles. He worked on Jeeps up to 5 and 10-ton trucks, and he would eventually go to heavy school, where he worked on big equipment, and he became licensed to run all tractor trailers and big lifts. When asked about what the hardest part of training was, he said, "What was the hardest part of training?"
The hardest part of training, I feel, was just being away if my mind got a chance to run rampant, so you try to stay busy.
Staff Sergeant Aument had many promotions over his 20 years of honorable service. He was a private, PFC, corporal, then it was changed over to a specialist, then a hard stripe 5, E5, and then a staff sergeant. Aument had an interesting take on what the easiest part of the military lifestyle to adapt to for him was. Easiest part of the military lifestyle for you to adapt to.
Taking orders. A lot of young people I feel today can't take orders very well.
A typical day for Aument, in his words, was a typical day for you look like.
First thing, early rise, always. Head off to the chow hall. Uh, the chow hall was only after we had a formation. After formation, chow hall, and then uh, back to your work assignment, your duty assignment. And if it was your day that you had a different assigned duty rather than your work, like instead of being a mechanic, if you had KP or if you had any kind of guard duty, then you went and reported for that.
Aument served stateside in Pennsylvania and went around the country with the National Guard in many states. In 1983, he was on the Reforger for the return of forces to Germany. After that was finished, in 1990 and 91, he went to Saudi Arabia, Iraq, and Kuwait, also known as Desert Storm and Desert Shield. His recollection of the experience was, what are your recollections of that experience?
Some are good, some are bad. The hardest part I feel is when you leave. It's the fear of the unknown. Are you going to come home to your family? And the better parts of it are you use everything that you were taught and learned to get through this so that you can come home.
Aument was in a command support role, but the war zone made that irrelevant. Combat will almost always change a person, and this is what Aument had to say. It changed me for the better. It makes you think things through, but you do it quick. You think about it and you change it, and adapt and make sure you change and the situation, whatever it is, so you can be a better person because you think much better and clearer. The military is very good for you that in that way. Ahmet said that the most terrifying thing about war was not knowing if he would come home. Ahmet made some friends with British soldiers, and he said he became an associate with some of the Saudi soldiers. Ahmet was able to keep in touch with his family through letters, and he said once a while, if you hit a satellite site, the U.S. had phone sites set up, but you had to get back to the rear for that. Ahmet told us what was on the letters.
Yes. I have a letter here. I'm sorry. I have a letter here from my wife explaining to me things about my children when I was in Iraq. And she tells me how their days are and what goes on. And my son wrote me a separate letter to tell me things, and my daughter wrote me one here saying that the day that she wrote this was Sunday, and she went to Sunday school, and then she went to a shoot with our gun club to compete in a BB gun sports, and I love the fact that all the letters from my children and my wife end with "I love you." It makes you know how much your family cares, and it's the whole reason you're there, to fight for the people and their freedom.
In his free time, Ahmet said, normally stateside, if I was off, you could shoot pool or what. Overseas, while in Iraq, I still worked. I did maintenance. I did anything to keep my mind off of home. The best part of Ahmet's service, he said, was coming home, but doing what you can, whether it's in the guard here within the state, whether you're activated for a snowstorm, floods, droughts, out west we hauled things. It's all part of what you're doing to help people. That's the best thing. You don't need to thank you for that. That's just what you do and why you do it. Ahmet became a staff sergeant in 1992 or 1993, he said. When I asked how it felt to be in charge of a group of men, he said, well, I already had a position as a squad leader, and so as an E6, I was pretty much right under my motor sergeant, and I worked for him until he retired, and I took over the motor sergeant's position. Ahmet was asked about what medals he was most proud of, and this is what he had to say. So, what medals are you most proud of?
The liberation of Kuwait medal, Saudi Arabia, and the liberation of Kuwait from Kuwaiti. And my Army Commendation medals and Army Achievement and my combat patch.
It's always important for veterans to feel welcomed back home when they return, and Ahmet said that's how he felt. Community.
Very well. I always have been friends growing up most of my life in Lidditz. I've been friends with a lot of people, whether it be people in the fire company, the police department, ambulance association, and scouting, the different scout groups, because I myself was in scouting and was an Eagle Scout. So everyone received me wonderfully, and when I came home, I was at the Memorial Day parade with my family, and my son was in scouts, so we marched in the parade together, and that was really nice. But the community always backed us, and that was awesome.
Ahmet went back to work after he returned home, but he was kept on active duty for what he believes was another 8 weeks. He said, all the equipment that came back from overseas had to be gone over and brought back in, so it was up to top shape for its maintenance that we pulled, and I was in charge of that and received another service plaque from the unit for that. Aument still continues friendships to this day. Friendships that still continue include his motor sergeant, first sergeant, command sergeant major, and many other people. Many veterans choose to join a veteran organization, and Aument joined the Lidditz VFW, and he also belongs to the American Legion in Lidditz. Aument attends reunions. He said, Aument attends reunions, and he said that he's been to at least 4, and that they've been wonderful to see his friends. Some have passed, but he enjoys seeing them and spending time with all of them. And he said that it takes you back to a good time when they were all together. Ahmet brought some items from his service to showcase. He brought a prayer rug from Saudi Arabia.
By one of the Saudis that the fella I saw him pretty much every day before the war had started, and so he gave me this one, and I also purchased one. But I have this. They pray 5 times a day, and that's just what they do. They pray to Allah.
Ahmet earned a lot of medals for his 20 years of honorable service to America. He explained all of them here.
Patch. The combat patch is the 2nd Combat Support Command out of Fort Eustis, Virginia. This is the 28th Division Bloody Bucket, which I was in on the 108th Field Artillery. This is non-division 213th Group. I was with them first, with the 121st Trans for many years. I have Staff Sergeant, of course. These are my years in service, 3 years for each stripe, each hash mark. And that's that one is an expert with a rifle with the M16. This one is with grenades and also with the equipment and also a driver. There I have a distinguished unit citation, and I have a governor's citation from the state of Pennsylvania that was issued to me. This is the ordnance ball, transportation pin, and this is from 28th Division Havarti. And that's pretty much it for that. The ribbons, that's a state ribbon. It's the white and the Stewart ribbon. The green is the 20 years in service ribbon with some, I forget what the silver star marks. I have overseas training ribbons, humanitarian service ribbons, mobilization ribbons. I was mobilized, I think, 7 times, and I also went to BNOC and ANOC. BNOC is your basic non-commissioned officer school, and ANOC, I went there, I passed that, but that was taken from me because I don't have a high school diploma, I have a GED. So I wasn't allowed to have that school. And up here you have Army Achievement, Medal, Army Commendation, and Army Reserves, U.S. Army Forces, Southwest Asia with 3 Bronze Battle Stars. The Humanitarian Service Ribbon was when the Cubans were released from the prisons and brought to the United States. They put a bunch of them in Fort Indian Town Gap, and we were in charge of security over them. So that's about all that I remember of.
Ahmet was deployed to Iraq in 1990 and returned home in 1991. Aument spoke about his service in Desert Shield and Desert Storm. Desert Shield was readying everything, getting so ready that when you would have to fight, that you were ready to go and everything was in place. And when Desert Storm started, the Air Force in my eyes, General Schwarzkopf was fantastic because he bombed the Iraqis so bad with artillery, with fighters, and what it does, it demoralized the people. Quite a few people we took prisoners, and some gave up, some didn't. By the end of the second or third day, I was going into Kuwait. Or no, I was outside of Kuwait, making my way down there, and when we did get to Kuwait, it was like what you see in a movie, when they freed up and when the service people went up and down through Paris when they freed them. That's just how it was in Kuwait, but his troops had burned out the city. Everything. He did a lot of harm. Anyway, we finished clearing down there and left there. I got back to our unit, and before we went back to Saudi Arabia, they told me I had 3 days of R&R coming. So I went to Bahrain on a plane and spent 3 days on the Cunard Princess cruise ship. It's kind of dry docked there so that you could have drinks because you couldn't have alcohol in the Saudi kingdom or any of the countries like that. And then I spent my time there, went back to my unit, readied our equipment. Ahmed's responsibilities as a squad leader was to make sure that everybody had what they needed and got to send letters or call home. He said that you try to keep people the best you can and take care of them because they are your responsibility. Aument proceeded to showcase 2 pictures from his service. Show us.
Yes. The first one I'll show you is a picture that was taken after we were done clearing at Kuwait and coming back to our area. And we were still in Iraq, but this picture is a picture of a GP medium tent set up back at our area. It was a fire base, and that's where that picture was. And then I have another picture that was taken of me. We were down in Kuwait, and I was at the water's edge. You can see how beautiful the water is, but anyway, that was in March, I believe, or yeah, in March. I took that one. Yes, it was March. I'm sorry. Yes.
Ahmet wishes that when he went into the service, he went straight into the army instead of being in the guard, but he doesn't have any regrets. Ahmet loves his country, God, and family, and proved that with his 20 years of defending the United States of America. Thank you, Mr. Aument, for your service.